пусковой подготовки 30-й.
Доклад 30-го принял, 5-й.
Пятый, готов отключить установку 8Г-332, разобрать схему термостатирования космической головной части 50-й.
Доклад 50-го принял, 5-й. 50-му выключить систему 8Г-332 и приступить к разборке схемы системы термостатирования космической головной части, 5-й.
Есть отключить установку 8Г-332, разобрать схему термостатирования космической головной части 50-й.
Доклад 60-го принял, 5-й.
Station flight control room at the Johnson Space Center. Countdown clocks are ticking backward for the launch of the Soyuz MS-24 spacecraft atop its Soyuz booster at 10:44 and 35 seconds a.m. Central Time, 11:44 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:44 p.m. Baikonur Time, about an hour and 23 minutes after sunset at the launch site. It's a perfect night for launch in Baikonur, 68 degrees Fahrenheit and clear skies for the start of the flight of Kononenko, Chub, and O'Hara to the International Space Station. Earlier today, the Soyuz booster was fueled for launch by engineers in Baikonur, a process that was completed a few hours ago. The launch control team in Baikonur reports that all systems are go for launch, no issues being worked as the countdown enters its final phase. The crew boarded the Soyuz about an hour and 45 minutes ago, strapped into their seats in the descent module of the Soyuz spacecraft, conducted leak checks of their Sokol launch and entry suits, and everything is in great shape as the countdown is now at 57 minutes and 40 seconds and counting for the launch of this Expedition 69 crew and station systems on the International Space Station, preparing to support the arrival of Soyuz MS-24 later today. That station population will increase from 7 to 10 with the addition of NASA astronaut Laurel O'Hara and her Soyuz crewmates Ali Kononenko and Nikolai Chub. The crew is all set to begin a flight of just over 3 hours in duration to the International Space Station, with docking scheduled at 1:56 p.m. Central Time this afternoon. The Soyuz and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Satoshi Furukawa. Mogensen will take over as Expedition 70 commander during a change of command ceremony on September 26th, before Prokopiev, Patelin, and Rubio depart in their Soyuz MS-23 spacecraft the following day, heading for a parachute-assisted landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan. Rubio, Prokopiev, and Patelin are in the home stretch of a mission that will have spanned 3. O'Hara's flight on Soyuz mirrors that of Roscosmos cosmonaut Konstantin Borisov, who launched to the station as number 1. To Kononenko's right, NASA's Laurel O'Hara serving as board engineer number 2. For O'Hara and Chub, this will be their first flight into space. For Kononenko, his 5th flight into space. Kononenko and Chub are embarking today on a 1-year mission aboard the International Space Station. They will return to Earth next September with NASA's Tracy Dyson, who Cosmonaut Corps currently ranks 6th on the all-time list of most days in space by a human. By the time he completes his mission a year from now, he will have jumped to the top of the list with more than 1,000 days in space.
Explore, both to inspire people on Earth to develop new technology and to take humans further and further in the solar system. And so working on things like that that have a worldwide impact and that are ultimately for the greater good, I think is really sort of the overarching thing that draws me to exploration. I'm Laurel O'Hara, and I'm an astronaut.
The Soyuz rocket stands 162 feet tall, weighs about 640,000 pounds, and consists of the Soyuz spacecraft inside a protective shroud at the top and the 3-stage Soyuz 2.1A booster below. The first stage has 4 liquid engines strapped to the side of the core vehicle. Each will burn for 1 minute and 58 seconds before they drop away. The core engine of the first stage also serves as the second stage and continues to burn until 4 minutes and 57 seconds into the flight. The third stage has a single engine that will ignite before the separation of the second stage, helping to push it away safely. It will burn until the 8 minutes and 46 seconds mark of the flight, and at that point the Soyuz spacecraft will separate from the third stage, having arrived at its preliminary orbit.
And again, back live with the view of the launch pad at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, the gantry arms that are enveloping the Soyuz booster. They will spread or retract to their position perpendicular to the rocket itself a few minutes from now, as we continue the countdown flawlessly, approaching the T-minus 42-minute mark. Meanwhile, the International Space Station is flying over the southern Pacific Ocean, about to cross the southern coast of South America at an altitude of 262 statute miles, about to begin a southwest to northeasterly track that will carry it across the west coast of Africa a short time from now. No problems being reported as the countdown proceeds smoothly from those engineers at the blockhouse in Baikonur. Atop that booster, strapped into their seats in the descent module of the Soyuz, which is the center section of the three-section Soyuz capsule, are NASA's Laurel O'Hara, and from Roscosmos, Oleg Kononenko and Nikolai Chub. The three sections of the Soyuz spacecraft are familiar to those who have watched previous missions to the International Space Station. Here's a look at this workhorse Russian vehicle.
The whole Soyuz spacecraft is 24.5 feet long with an overall volume of 301 cubic feet and comprised of 3 modules. The descent module, situated in the middle of the Soyuz vehicle, contains customized seats for the crew members during launch, entry, and landing, and contains all the controls and displays necessary for the flight. It also houses life support systems, batteries for the re-entry and landing, and the parachute and soft landing rocket engines that slow the Soyuz just before touchdown as the spacecraft lands in Kazakhstan. There are 8 hydrogen peroxide thrusters located on the module, which are used to control the spacecraft's orientation, or attitude, during the descent until parachute deployment. The descent module also contains a guidance, navigation, and control system used to maneuver the vehicle during the descent phase of the mission. This descent module is 7.3 feet long with a diameter of 7.1 feet and a habitable volume of 124 cubic feet. It is the only portion of the Soyuz that survives the return to Earth. The orbital module at the top is 9.8 feet long. It connects to the descent module via pressurized hatch. This is where the crew has a small amount of room to move around following launch during the flight to the space station. It has a docking mechanism, hatch, and rendezvous antennas located at the front end. The docking mechanism is used to dock with the space station, and the hatch allows entry into the orbiting complex. The rendezvous antennas are used by the automated docking system, which uses radar, to maneuver toward the station for docking. There is also a forward-looking window in the module that the crew can use to take manual measurements of distance and closing speed with a laser rangefinder in the event of failure of the rendezvous radar system. The propulsion module houses the oxygen storage tanks, the main engine, and the attitude control thrusters, avionics, and communication and control equipment. The propulsion portion of this module handles all orbital maneuvers, including those needed for the rendezvous with the space station and the deorbit burn at the end of the spacecraft's mission. Before they are deployed, the 2 solar arrays are folded against the body of the propulsion module, which, along with the orbital module, separates from the descent module after the deorbit burn. The solar panels span almost 35 feet. The entire spacecraft serves not only as a crew transport vehicle to and from the space station, but also as an emergency return vehicle in the unlikely event the crew needs to leave the station unexpectedly.
And you'll be seeing and hearing a lot more about the Soyuz spacecraft on September 27th, when we are here all night in the deep overnight to provide coverage of the departure of Frank Rubio, Sergei Prokopyev, and Dmitry Petelin from the International Space Station to wrap up their 371-day mission. We're also just a few minutes away from receiving from Baikonur a video B-roll feed of all of the crew's activities that led up to their boarding the Soyuz spacecraft a couple of hours ago. We'll be bringing that to you as soon as that feed comes in from Baikonur just a couple of minutes or so from now. The ride to orbit for O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub will take about 8 minutes and 45 seconds. That's the point at which we'll have third stage shutdown of the Soyuz booster and spacecraft separation, placing the Soyuz in its initial orbital plane. The solar arrays and navigational antennas will deploy right after spacecraft separation, and the chase will be on for the Soyuz to catch up to the International Space Station. Because the orbital mechanics in this launch date were specifically selected for a 2-orbit, 3-hour-plus rendezvous for O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub, they will begin the automated process for rendezvous maneuvers to raise the altitude of the Soyuz to match that of the International Space Station, and to begin closing the gap between the Soyuz and the station as rapidly as possible. The first rendezvous burn, called a DV-1 burn, or Delta Velocity 1 burn, of about 4.74 meters per second, is scheduled some 39 minutes after launch, about 10 minutes before what is called automated rendezvous operations begin. The Soyuz will rapidly begin to close the gap between itself and the International Space Station, and later this afternoon will arrive in the vicinity of the space station itself, conducting a fly around of the station to precisely align itself with the Rassvet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the complex. After a brief moment or two for station keeping to permit Russian flight controllers to assess the angular alignment of the Soyuz forward docking probe with the Rassvet module, the command will be given to begin final approach. That will be a very slow glacial approach of about 1/10 of a meter per second in its final phase, allowing the Soyuz to dock with the station's Rassvet module at 1:56 p.m. Central Time, 2:56 p.m. Eastern Time. Once the docking is completed and the period of relative motion between the two vehicles at the docking interface has dampened out, the forward docking probe will retract and basically pull the two vehicles flush against one another, the Soyuz and the station, permitting hooks to close to form a hard mate between the Soyuz and the station. Leak checks will be performed on both sides of the docking interface before the hatches are opened later this afternoon, and O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub will float into the International Space Station to begin their stay on board the complex. And again, we are standing by for the roll of video from this morning's crew activities down in Baikonur that began several hours ago. The gantry arms that you see buttressed up against the side of the Soyuz rocket out on Site 31, Launch Pad 6, will begin to spread a short time from now, as the countdown has now reached the 35-minute, 17-second mark. It's a beautiful night down in Baikonur, about 68 degrees Fahrenheit, clear skies. You couldn't ask for more, as O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub, in a spacecraft that carries the call sign of Antares, the MS-24 spacecraft, begins its trip a short time from now, within the next 35 minutes, to the International Space Station. And here is the video of this morning's activities down in Baikonur. The traditional day began for the crew members as they were awakened at the Cosmonaut Hotel crew quarters in Baikonur to traditional farewell music. The crew departed the hotel and boarded a bus. We have engine sequence start. We have engine ignition.
Second tower separation.
3, 2, 1.
Pumps at flight speed.
And liftoff. O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub begin a short duration journey for a long duration mission on the International Space Station. All vehicle parameters are normal. 23 seconds into the flight. Good roll, pitch, and yaw program. Engine performance on the first stage nominal.
L plus 30 seconds. Flight is nominal.
40 seconds into the flight.
Well,
Structural parameters are normal. Engine parameters reported from the blockhouse in Baikonur, all to be within limits and normal. 5 seconds into the flight.
Roll pitch yaw nominal.
All the vehicle parameters are normal. Good reports coming in from the blockhouse in Baikonur. The vehicle arcing out to the northeast from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. 90 seconds into the flight.
L plus 90 seconds.
Good engine performance being reported.
184608. C off nominal pressure in casual 1500. Copy.
Coming up on first stage shutdown. And we have first stage separation.
Jettison confirmed.
Launch tower jettison reported. Everything in good shape.
First stage separation
2 minutes,
confirmed.
12 seconds into the flight.
Copy. Casio is back to nominal 980. Copy.
The vehicle now operating on its second stage engines. All parameters are normal, good structural performance by the vehicle. Launch shroud jettison now reported. And this view now from a camera on the upper stage of the Soyuz 2.1A booster.
We confirm jettison of the nose steering.
2 minutes, 50 seconds into the flight. A little over 6 minutes of powered flight remaining.
Launch vehicle is nominal. Copy. Soyuz is nominal. Crew is feeling well.
Kononenko reports the crew is feeling well. 3 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight. Perfect engine performance reported. Good structural parameters on the vehicle.
L plus 200 seconds. Second stage engine operating nominally.
Second stage engine is functioning by the book. The Soyuz heading for its precise keyhole in space. Flight is normal. Now 4 minutes into the flight, everything going perfectly. O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub heading for their preliminary orbit and the chase to track down and dock to the International Space Station.
L plus 250 seconds.
4 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight.
Nominal.
Roll pitch, all normal. Engine performance is normal as well.
L plus 270 seconds. Standing by for GK2 command. Copy.
Coming up on second stage shutdown. And we have second stage shutdown.
Second stage separation confirmed. Copy.
Second stage separation confirmed. That's the skirt for the third stage. You saw it being jettisoned. 5 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight. About 3.5 minutes of powered flight remaining. The Soyuz now being propelled on the power of its third stage engine.
Launch vehicle is nominal. Copy. Soyuz is nominal. Crew is feeling well. Copy.
Kononenko continuing to report that the crew is feeling well. Everything normal on board. 5 minutes, 45 seconds into the flight. Good third stage performance.
L plus 350 seconds. Flight is nominal. Copy.
We've just passed the 6 minute mark into the flight. Good reports continuing to come in. Control of the Soyuz spacecraft after it separates from the third stage will transfer to the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. 6 minutes, 25 seconds into the flight.
Stage 3 engine operating nominally. Copy.
Six minutes, 45 seconds into the flight. 2 minutes of powered flight remaining.
Stabilization is steady. Copy.
Good, stable structural performance by the vehicle.
L plus 430 seconds. Stage 3 engine operating nominally.
7 minutes,
Copy.
20 seconds into the flight. Nothing but good reports coming in. We're about a minute and a half away from third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation.
L plus 460 seconds. Launch vehicle structural parameters are nominal.
7 minutes,
Copy.
55 seconds into the flight. Everything is going perfectly so far. Less than a minute to go before third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation.
L plus 490 seconds. Stabilization is steady.
8 minutes, 20 seconds into the flight. About 30 seconds of powered flight remaining.
L plus 500 seconds. Light is nominal.
Right after third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation, we'll be standing by for the deployment of the solar arrays and navigational antennas on the Soyuz.
L plus 520 seconds.
Standing by now for third stage shutdown.
Standing by for GK 3. 530
And we
seconds.
have third stage shutdown and third stage
Third
separation.
Stage engine cutoff confirmed. Separation confirmed. Antares, we're handing you over to MCC Moscow.
And the program has been activated, and the solar arrays and navigational antennas are now confirmed to have been deployed. Perfect ride to orbit for Laurel O'Hara, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub. Control room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Mission Control with you as we are preparing for the arrival of 3 new residents to the International Space Station. At this hour, the Soyuz MS-24 spacecraft that launched just 2 hours and 16 minutes ago from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan is rapidly approaching the neighborhood of the station, now just about 30 kilometers separating the Soyuz from its destination, the Rassvet module, and a docking to the Earth-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. At this hour, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers is on console here in Mission Control. Flight Director Chris Dobbins, who is in the middle of this cluster of flight controllers on console. To his left is Flight Director Ronak Dave, and to his right, spacecraft communicator Jessica Meir, the veteran astronaut who launched just 4 years ago on a Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft to the International Space Station.
Copy.
Of Dmitry Petelin and Frank Rubio, just 12 days from now, is docked to the space-facing side of the Russian segment to the Prishal module, that is the node module attached to the multipurpose laboratory module.
Range is 70, 0.3 is range rate. We have the crosshairs aligned. So it's in the center. Range is, by my assessment, 17 meters, and range rate is 0.1. Copy. We see the target, and the eclipse is starting. Range is 10 meters by my assessment.
A flawless launch to docking scenario for Laurel O'Hara, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub. O'Hara and Chub arriving at the station for the first time. Kononenko, an old hat at this. This is his 5th flight into space. It was dead perfect from launch to docking. Docking occurring at 1:53 p.m. Central Time.
Quoting section 1 and 2. The sewing handle. KSD, maybe KSD screwdriver here. Is the KSD plug here?
Sergei Prokopiev and Oleg Kononenko across the hatch to the Soyuz spacecraft, talking about the collection of tools to be those Soyuz systems that will be in a caretaker state while the spacecraft is linked to the International Space Station, will be deactivated later this evening. Laurel O'Hara on board the International Space Station. Followed by Nikolai Chub. Oleg Kononenko following the two first-time flyers into the International Space Station.
I will say a few words. I would like to greet all the ground control team. I knew many of those people who are on console. I worked with them on shift, so thank you so much. Our thanks from space now to you. Nikolai, you know our work from inside out, so to say. I think we will have full cooperation with you while you're on board. Thank you so much for everything from Laurel. Okay, now our guests here will talk to you. Your friends and family members.
Laurel and Nikolai, enjoy settling into your new home.
Привет, я вас вижу.
Welcome back.
Рад вас видеть.
Hello, I can see you. I'm happy to see you.
Some of the welcoming remarks by the newly arrived crew members on board the International Space Station, the Soyuz MS-24 crew that launched this morning just about 6 hours ago at 10:44 a.m. Central Time, 11:44 a.m. Eastern Time, arriving at the station for a docking to the Rassvet module 3 hours, 9 minutes later at 1:53 p.m. Central, 2:53 p.m. Eastern Time. The leak checks between the Soyuz and the International Space Station were ongoing. About 2 hours after docking, everything was in good shape, so the hatches finally were opened. The Soyuz hatch opening at 4:16 p.m. Central Time, 5:16 p.m. Eastern Time, enabling Oleg Kononenko, Laurel O'Hara, and Nikolai Chub to float on board and join their Expedition 69 crewmates, increasing the station population to 10 crew members for the next 12 days. A good view of the Soyuz MS-24 that functioned in flawless fashion from launch to docking, bringing to the International Space Station Kononenko, Chub, and O'Hara. Kononenko and Chub beginning 1 year on the International Space Station, Laurel O'Hara beginning a 6-month stay on the International Outpost. So with that, we'll wrap up our coverage for today. Thanks for being with us throughout the course of the day for the launch, docking, and arrival on board the station of Oleg Kononenko, Laurel O'Hara, and Nikolai Chub. This is Mission Control Houston.